And here's my message to other teens. Get loud!
On this special edition of Lily's Table, born of Martin Luther King III and Audrina Waters, Yolanda Renee King has grown up to carry on the legacy of her grandparents, the late and greats Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King. By age 9, she would go on to cement herself in history by delivering a powerful message at the March for Our Lives demonstration in Washington, D.C.
I have a dream that enough is enough.
I've been granted the privilege and honor to have the young but socially conscious icon come sit down with me, where we will be talking about her life as the latest in a long line of social justice advocates, and much more in this episode of Lily's Table. So, number one, I have so many questions to ask you, but let's get the biggest thing out of the way.
All right.
She is the only grandchild of the amazing Dr. King and Coretta Scott King. What does that even feel like?
Well, you know, my whole life since birth, my parents told me, your grandparents were significant. Your grandparents were really, really important, and they were great people. And I guess I always heard that, and I would say I kind of took it for granted. I was never, of course, like annoyed with it or anything, but I never really understood the significance. It's like one of those things you have to understand for yourself. So when I would say when I was in 4th grade, it really clicked to me. I was like, these people, my grandparents were amazing. These people were amazing. And like as I get older, I learn new stuff, and I'm like, wow, it just gets even more special, like just discovering how amazing they really are, and just it was just a click. Like I really just in 4th grade, and it's so interesting because that was like around the time I did my speech for March for Our Lives. And so sorry, my voice is really hoarse right now.
What are some pros and cons of being related to them?
I would say, wait, which one's which? I forgot.
Oh, pros, which is the good stuff. Yeah, and the cons is the bad stuff.
I was just making sure.
Yeah, I was like that when I was writing my notes.
I would say there's not really any cons of being. I mean, the only con I would say is like really almost like trying to keep up the legacy and trying to have high expectations.
Yeah.
No one like my parents never have high expectations for me. They're like, you know, you don't have to be in this work if you don't want to be in it. It's almost something I put for myself, you know. And I feel like a lot of people have high expectations. Like I remember at school, even classmates would be like, whenever I made a mistake or something, or it may not have even been like a mistake, it may have been something that I did that they didn't like. They were like, your grandparents would be really disappointed
oh my God.
in you. And so that really was harmful. And so, but I would say the pros is just really being able to being able to do the work that they're doing. And
continue it?
Yes, like to continue the legacy and to be able to, it's really an honor, and to be able to have that honor is probably like one of the best pros, and really being like proud. Like sometimes I'm like, and I try not to be arrogant, but I'm like, wow, these are my grandparents. They were pretty cool. And so so sometimes I'm like that's cool. And so sometimes I feel, I guess that's like a pro. Like it feels really, it's like an awesome feeling sometimes. It's an awesome feeling.
So I know you started very young because you started talking about 4th grade.
Yes.
And so when did you realize what the world around you was? Like when did you realize that there was stuff that needed to be fixed?
Well, my parents said that I would talk, like, if you drive around Atlanta, you see like a lot of homeless people. And so my parents said, and I kind of remember this, I was really little when I was really started to talk about homelessness, and I was 3 or 4. And so I was concerned about these issues when I was 3 or 4. I didn't really And when I was 7, I would say a lot of people don't know about this, but my family and I were invited to go see President Obama because he had just installed a new bust in the Oval Office, and it was a bust of my grandfather. And so my parents were like, okay, you have to prepare a question for the president. And so I was like, okay, I think I have a question. And they're like, we can help you if you need help. But I already came up with my question. And I asked him, Mr. President, what are you going to do about these guns?
Ooh.
And so I think I've always had an urge from a very young age. And so I think it's always been something in me. It's almost like a mosquito bite. And you know how when you get it, it starts to itch and you just want to scratch it? And so that's almost like activism. It's almost like a mosquito bite. And I just really want to scratch it and make change, because if I see something that's not right and I have the opportunity to change something, then I will.
That's really amazing. Also, number 1, what did the president respond with?
So he responded. So as you can obviously that's a lot coming from a 7-year-old, and just in general, it's a complicated issue. So he was like, well, our police are going to be handling it, and one of those adult answers. And then after that, I guess I kind of looked at him and I was like, okay, I need a better answer. And so he kind of tries to give a better answer. So, yeah.
That is the coolest story I have heard ever. Okay, so going back to activism, how can people our age get involved in that or get engaged with that?
I think one of the, there's a few roadblocks to people not getting involved into many of these important issues. And one of them is that, they're told by adults to just stay in school and focus on your studies, and that's all you need to focus on. And then, I guess, correct it when you get older. But then there's also another thing. They're like, well, I have to be a really good public speaker to be an activist, and I don't like speaking in front of crowds, or I get scared when I speak in front of crowds. But activism is about using your platform for good. So that could be starting a social media account and posting stuff on your social media. That could be writing songs about it. That could be writing novels about it. That could be making visual art about it. So basically what I'm saying when I'm referring to platform is that find something that you're good at and use that for good. Find your talent. Find something that you enjoy. Use it for good.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me of when I was in competition. I danced, and my dance, American Funeral, was all about gun violence and Black people dying. So I was like, oh, when she just said that, I just realized I used my platform for good, which was dancing.
You did. Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel great. Okay. And speaking about important issues, what's your opinion about, or what's your perspective on social injustice in 2021?
Oh,
I know, right?
Well, honestly, I'm really disappointed that we are still facing and we are still fighting the same issues that we did 58 years ago.
I know, right?
And it's just so disappointing. And that's what I feel like we should be much further. We see a bunch of people, we see a bunch of organizations say they'll have these goals, they'll have this done by 2040, by 2030. I'm like, we have 9 years left, and you spent most of the time procrastinating on the issue. And so it's really sad that we are working on the same things that we did 58 years ago. It's really one of those, come on, we can really do better.
I know, right?
Are you serious?
Like when your teachers are disappointed on a test that you took, and she's like, I know y'all could have done better.
Yeah.
So, going on to fixing it, Generation Z will definitely have to be part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of things are we doing wrong that we need to fix?
well, it's not everybody doing everything wrong. Are you referring to politicians or everyday people? There's a lot of factors that go into it. We could talk about the news only covering certain stories or targeting, in this case, Black people and only talking about Black people and crime. And then what do you think that's going into the people's mind, and that's giving them these really bad universal indictments about Black people. And so you can also talk about the politicians who make these promises, who make these great promises. They claim that they have great plans and they claim they want to help us, but by the time they get in office, they turn their backs. And so I think what we are doing wrong is we really need to keep our eyes on them. Like, we really need to stay close to them. It's almost like a soccer game. Like, you don't just, like, when the other team has the ball, you don't just run away from the ball and just let them score. Like, we had to stand the ball. We had to defend them. Like, we had to be defenders right now. And so I think the best thing that we can do is keep making change and we had to have more people getting involved and have more people keeping our eyes on those in power, really, to make sure that they're making responsible decisions. And honestly, it's kind of sad because they should be doing that automatically. They have obligated to that position. They've made an obligation to that position. So they should be already, they should be committed to change it. They should be committed to saying what they say they're going to do. And they say all these good things, but then they let go of it. And so I think what we as everyday people are doing wrong is that we should be able to leave and not always have our eyes on them and just go on with our everyday lives. Like, we just are like, okay, whatever, they got it out of the bag. But like with this society, you have to always stay close to the politicians and make sure that they're doing what they promise they are doing.
And I feel like you need to send some letters out to some folks, like the government and the president, because I just learned in my last interview that you can send letters to the president.
You can. And you can email your elected officials too. You can email people in Congress. You can even send voicemails to people in Congress too.
Have you done that?
I'm planning to.
Yeah. I'm going to be there when you do. So what's it like to be a leader?
Well, I guess people say you're a leader, but like, I don't really think of myself as a leader, if that makes sense. A lot of people say I'm a leader, but then I would say I'm not really one of those people that, like, I don't really like to brag about myself or anything. So I'm not like, oh, I'm a leader. And so I guess it just feels like it makes sense. Like, it doesn't really feel like, how do I explain it? Like, I try not to really think about that or focus on that. But sometimes I'm like, because of human nature, obviously, like, it is kind of cool that I get to do this work and that a lot of people are listening to me. And so, I think that's kind of a human nature thing. But I try not to really be so self-absorbed or like think about that, because this isn't about me trying to build my profile. This is about me fighting for what's right.
Yeah, because I think of you as leader. Already, like, you gave like 3 speeches in this interview already. I was like, yep, she's a leader. All right. What are some of the topics that you care about most, that you like really want to change?
Well, I think all of the issues that have been brought up, especially the ones specifically highlighted by the UN, the 17 goals, I think all of those are important issues. There have been issues, only a few that I've really focused on. I would say homelessness, the systemic racism in this country, the gun violence prevention, and women's rights. And
amen.
Yeah, but then I would also say, just looking at some of the information we've gotten from scientists and following other activists, I've also been looking more into climate change, and I've been like wow, this is really an important issue, and it's also I would say it should be on the list of the most important issues if you were to rank all of them.
And how are you planning, like, I know you have to go step by step, like baby steps and stuff, but how are you planning to fix those issues?
Fix these issues? Well, I think, like you said, it's step by step. In my mind, it's like okay, I have to do this. Like, I try to create these checklists of, like, once I complete this, I'm going to work on this issue now. And then after that issue, I'm going to work on that issue now. But then sometimes it always changes because things are constantly changing, you know. You have to look into what politicians are doing to really see, okay, what issue do I have to work on now? It's almost like these issues in my mind are like homework assignments. Okay, what homework now that I finish this homework, what homework do I have to do now? And so, like, I think it constantly changes, and you really need to sorry about my voice is really hoarse right now, but you really have to look at the politicians and what they are doing to really see, okay, and then what do I want? And then you kind of have to put that together. So right now, I would say I'm focused on voting rights. And so I would say always just keeping yourself close to our leaders, just really seeing what they are doing, and to keep giving criticism and making sure that we get these bills passed that are really here to benefit society.
So talk about voting rights for my viewers who don't know, because doesn't everybody have voting rights now?
Let me just say it this way. Everyone should have voting rights. So basically, let me explain what's happening. So last year was the 2020 presidential election. And let's just say some people did not like the results of that election. So and keep in mind, these are like grown people. They decided to act like 6-year-olds and have a temper tantrum, and then basically pass all these bills and acts that make it harder for people to vote. And now let's go further back, where people were during that time. It was hard for people to vote during the civil rights movement. They didn't want people to vote, and the people who they didn't want to vote, the white people, I'm just gonna go ahead and say the people who were suppressing the vote, didn't want the black people to vote, and so and people of color, really, they didn't want them to have a say in this country. So let's go back to 2021, and if you look at a bunch of these laws, they are specifically targeted to people with disabilities, women, black people, many of the minorities. And so it is, again, a lot of people call it Jim Crow all over again, because these laws are making it harder for people to vote. So, and when it's harder for people to vote, they have less of a say in this country. So I'm assuming many of your viewers probably have issues which they are quite concerned about right now. Well, if you don't elect the right people in office, it's going to be harder to get those issues tackled and to get them accomplished. So voting rights is so important because you have to elect the the right people in office, and the people who are making these voting laws. I'm not going to label the parties or anything because I know this is a kid's, so I don't want to get too political. But the people who are making these laws and bills are people. They're people who basically they've had a history of not really benefiting society, and they don't want to get these issues that you care about. They don't want these issues that you care about to be accomplished, and they want this country to stay in the same state, which is a disastrous state right now. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. And so basically what they're doing is, by creating these voting laws, is they're trying to make sure that they stay in office, so that and that can block many issues. Well, in this issue, voting rights is complicated. There's also the filibuster, which even when bills, Okay, so a lot of these bills, these laws that we're seeing are from the state level. So what many people like me are trying to do is get these bills that are to benefit that are making it that should make it easier for people to vote passed on a federal level. And so many of the politicians who have had a history of not passing or not really wanting to benefit society are using this thing called the filibuster. And the filibuster is basically something that blocks a law from being passed, or a bill from being passed, and it's been used historically to block things that will benefit society from being passed. And they are using the filibuster now. And so that is also a big roadblock. And so let me wrap this up because it's a complicated issue and I could talk about it all day long. But voting rights is so important because if you are a person who cares for certain issues, you have to elect the right people. And the people who are creating these issues are people who do not care about these important issues and just want to stay in office. Do you really want people like that making your laws for this country?
You better tell them. Oop. One more time. You better tell them. Also, I just want to say I'm learning a lot from this. A lot. Okay, but so speaking of me learning a lot, can you give people some tips on like speaking out? Because I know there's probably like certain stuff that you have to do to get it across somewhere.
Well, again, I want to just say, as I was talking earlier in our conversation, that you don't have to be a great public speaker to be an activist. Like, there are many ways that you can be an activist. So one way that you can help, if you're not fully sure how to get you can reach out to organizations as well. And you can look up organizations that are trying to accomplish the same or are concerned about the same issues as you are, and you can email them just like you can email your politicians and say, look, I really want to work with you, and then or you can even go to demonstrations. And although you aren't really like you are getting the word out by coming, and you are a big part of the demonstration, because without the participants at the demonstration, the peaceful demonstration, there would be no speakers. There would be the speakers wouldn't have an audience. And so it's so important for you to show up to many of the demonstrations or go to the streets that you are concerned about. And so I think that is one way to getting the message heard, because and you can bring a bunch of friends, and your friends can tell friends, because the more people there are, then press will have to cover that. So that is one way to get it spread. So you don't have to have a huge social media following. You can be a kid my age who wants to make change, and so and you can bring your friends, and you can start a club at school with 20 people or even 13 people, and then you can bring them to the marches and to the demonstrations, and that's getting the message heard.
That's cool. Well, I just want to say that your vocabulary is excellent. Okay, now I want to pivot to some more lighter questions. What are some of your hobbies?
I would say, what are my hobbies? Well, I'm trying to find my hobbies. During quarantine, I got into photography, and I really enjoy photography, I would say. And I really just like the arts, I would say, in general. They're really cool. And I like really being just sometimes laying down and just listening to music.
I know, right? It's a vibe. It
is. Or you know how when you're alone and then you have your own dance party?
Yeah.
No one's there. Those are so fun. Those are
yes,
the best.
In my room with the closed door and my speaker on blast. Those are the best moments a teen tween can experience.
That's so true.
Yeah. Wait, so photography. Let's go back to that.
Yes.
You should come work for my parents. Stay in a photo studio. Yeah, which we're in.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so, you know, when you go older, come work here. How did you find that?
You know, for one of my classes in school, we were doing this project of something like new, something new that we should try, and so I decided. Well, actually, I sort of started getting into like photography before then because I thought I guess I always thought it was cool. It's just like I think it's like images are just so like they could be so pretty and so aesthetically pleasing, and I like colors and bright things and neon things. Today I'm not really wearing neon, but I really love neon colors and like your background and your everything. So like I love colors.
Yes.
And so pictures are so pretty, and I was like, I probably need like a creative outlet.
Yeah.
And so I started to get into photography, and my parents started to see that like I really enjoyed photography. So last year for Christmas, they got me a camera. And so
ooh. That's cool. Also, is school causing you stress?
Is school causing me stress? I think I have frustrating moments in school.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And sometimes like I feel like this year is really like prepping me for high school.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it can be a lot. And again with expectations, like I'm a person who has high expectations. So sometimes I set like really high expectations for myself, and so that can be stressful. I don't like to say I get stressed or I have stress, but sometimes I may have moments, and so but usually I just bounce back.
Yeah, don't we all? But I asked you that because I want to ask you, what's your favorite like self-care thing to do?
What is my favorite self-care? Sometimes just talking to my mom. Like I feel like my mom, like I tell my mom a lot of stuff, and I know that some people don't really like to tell their parents a lot of stuff, or but like I really tell my mom a lot of stuff, and it's like really it's really good self-care for me.
Yeah.
I can like get out my thoughts, like release for me. Also I would say self-care, listening to music, like again, sometimes vibing and listening to music, especially like when there's songs that like I can relate to. And I always liked music, but I feel like the last few months, like I've really gotten to really, like I can emphasize with songs sort of, and so like it really helps me express my feelings. And I think music is supposed to be healing, and it can be healing for me.
Yeah, I have like made like 3 more Spotify playlists. But I also tell my mom all the time, like who all my friends got crushes on. You know, Mom? Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So, last question. But what advice do you want to give to kids our age?
On activism or just in general?
Just overall in general on activism.
Overall in general, just advice.
I know, just anything.
No pressure.
Yeah, because
I'm 13, so I'm still learning life too. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
But in terms of activism, again, activism is about using your platform for good. So find something that you love, find something that you're good at and that you genuinely enjoy, and use that for good. Like you said, dance, and even in just this show, like I know before we were talking about like the type of content you have on this show, and your show is to inspire people, and so that is using your platform for good. So I also applaud you for that as well. So you have had a history of using your platform for good. So yay!
Thank you. Bow. Okay. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today, and I want to thank Yolanda for coming on with me and spilling all of the tea. And I want to thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.